This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Christian Taylor Wilkinson, the Executive Director of Altona Rare Earths. Hello, Christian. Welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Mark. How are you? Thanks for having me on again.
Yes, it's good to have you. I'm very well, thank you. So we're going to be catching up on news today. That's new convertible loan facility, extension of loan facility, proposed placing of £1.25 million, and of course, an update on the LSE listing. Let's start with the LSE listing. That's the most exciting thing for most investors. So bring us up to speed. You've actually got something significant to talk about this time with regards to this.
Yeah, it's quite a busy RNS this morning, but they all link together. So I thought it's important that the news was delivered in one rather than spreading it out. As you know, as hopefully your viewers know, we started this process to try get our listing changed from Aquis onto the LSE standard. We started that in, I think, around March or April 2021. So it's probably coming up for some sort of world record length of time it's taken. But what we've finally done is ticked all the boxes with the questions that the FCA have been asking. And the history of Altona, been listed on AIM for 15 years, was part of the issue as well. I think the FCA struggled with a company that had been an AIM-listed vehicle or company for 15 years, then on Aquis, and then looking to go onto standard. You know, we basically hopped or been part of, or we will be part of, every single stock market that there is to have in the UK. So they've now approved our listing subject to the submission of a finalized prospectus. And I've chosen that wording carefully. The prospectus is the main document that you have to submit on day one with your admission process. And then as the business evolves over the period, of course, you've got to update it. And normally the process takes 3 to 6 months. So you may only have to put in 2 or 3 versions, but we've submitted maybe 10 versions because we're an operational mining company. And because we're a listed company, everything we do is in the public. It's not like we're a private company and therefore you could keep things private. Everything we do has to be announced to shareholders. And obviously we didn't want to make the choice at the start of doing nothing, sitting on our hands until the listing was done. We couldn't do that. We had promises again to shareholders to deliver on various milestones on our strategy, which we've done on target, on time, on budget, all that sort of stuff. So again, operationally it's great, but finally we have this approval subject to us submitting the finalized prospectus. And the prospectus is 99.9% done. All it needs to do is complete a placing, because there's a working capital requirement. We have to show we have at least 12 months money in the bank.
Okay.
And then once we've got the placing finished, which Optiva have started today, mentioning, as you said earlier, £1.25 million, that figure and the new share register, because the share register will be enlarged, will go into the prospectus and we'll submit it to the FCA. And I would then hope they will sign off the application, and possibly within only 4 or 5 days from the completion of the placing, we will find ourselves a London Stock Exchange standard listed company with a new ticker of REE rather than the current ticker of ANR.
Of REE. Excellent. Well, that's a very significant milestone. Indeed, yes. A very good ticker to have. It's an acronym that's going to be on the lips of many people, I think, in the years to come. So just to clear up a couple of things, this is obviously very significant, but of course that 1.1 million that you raised from the last placing, it was conditional on the LSE listing. So as I understand, you didn't receive that because you didn't list, and now you're basically going and raising again, but a bit more, 1.25.
Yeah, that's a good point. you made two good points. The first one is that I've actually had a couple of calls from shareholders asking about this, so I'm glad you raised it. The 1.1 million was purely conditional as listing on the stock market. We didn't list last September or October, so the long stop date finished and it just disappeared. We didn't make an announcement to say it didn't disappear because we took advice from our lawyers and our corporate advisor, and because the condition hadn't been satisfied, therefore we didn't take the money. And I guess to them it was obvious, but of course, stupidly, I have to remember that majority of our shareholders are retail investors who don't have this sort of in-depth knowledge of the city. Why would they? They don't work there. So I apologize, I guess, on behalf of the company for not clearing that up. So yes, we did not receive 1.1 million. The last time we raised cash was in April 2021, last year, when we raised £500,000, and we made that money come through, which is probably why we've taken the loan, which we just extended for £150,000. That was needed in early December to finish off the last 500 meters of drilling to enable the resource estimate to be of the size that Cedric and his drilling team wanted it to be. You know, we could have probably done it with the data we already have because we'd done sort of 6 months drilling, but he'd been saving up this high grade area at the end to delineate the primary targets. We've got 3 targets, which we're currently exploring in detail. And this is the primary target. So we had to do that. So this is the first money we've raised in 8 months, 9 months. And the reason why it's higher is because in May of this year, we will commence phase 3 at Monte Moimbe, which is pre-feasibility. And that's a 2-year phase, which has got a minimum commitment of £2 million. So we will be further along in that. If it had listed 6 months ago, we're going to be further along in that now. So that's why we need sort of an extra £150,000. In all likelihood, if things go as well as they do go, and we want to explore faster, or we're also going to be doing some blind drilling. So on some of these areas where Cedric has identified there to be rare earths, but we haven't yet drilled, it could be that whilst we do the pre-feasibility on targets 1, 4, and 9, we may also start looking at some of these other areas that have been identified through a soil sampling exercise, but we didn't have the cash resources to do the drilling this year. Yep. So what you have to remember, we're a very small company, and we've raised just under £3 million in the last 3 years. So the resources, you know, we couldn't go willy-nilly into this area. It's 5 kilometers by 4 kilometers. It's quite a large area, the basin of Monte Moimbe. So we had to be very clever where to drill, and that cleverness was primarily based on the expertise of Cedric and his geologist team. We could have, you know, just done a grid and put thousands of holes until we struck rare earths, but we didn't. We identified where they were. So there are maybe 7 or 8 other obvious targets, and when we have more cash, we'll do it. But the primary milestone that we had to sort out was to get a resource statement, because currently this company doesn't have an independent JORC compliant resource statement estimate regarding Monte Moimbe.
Okay.
The most important thing about that is, on getting that, it triggers our ability to increase our holding from 20% to 51%. Okay. So not only do we have this resource estimate, which we think is going to show around 20 million tons at something like 2.4% trio, which is well up there with the other UK listed rare earth companies, it means we can take 51%. So for the first time since we entered into this deal a couple of years ago, we're a majority shareholder. And I think that's important for investors. You know, whilst we make it clear that this project is great, the reality is at the moment we only own 20%. So 51% is a good thing.
It is. It's a very good thing. And of course,
de-risks the project.
It does. And you've borrowed, you've got a CLN there for 275,000, which is that just to see you through then? You say it's for immediate use on the project. Do you need to complete this MRE as part of the prospectus?
Not at all.
Okay.
So we knew the placing could take a little bit of time, and it may take another 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. But we needed the money now, because every day we delay with the assay. So all the samples were sent off to South Africa for processing, pre-processing, and then the core samples were then sent to Intertek in Australia, where they are now. Intertek has already started the assay, so they're already analysing each sample in each core that we sent them, and they've done maybe 70%. But the last phase of drilling we did in November, the high grade zone, that hasn't been assayed yet, and we need to pay them. And also we need to pay this company called Snowden, who is one of the leading mining consultancies that do things like competent person reports, and they're actually going to do our MRE. So we need to pay them up front because that's the sort of business they are. And as I said, we have made a statement in the market that the resource statement will be published before the end of Q1. It might slip a bit now because we didn't get the listing done last year, but we've taken this loan. So it gives us, if the placing does take 2 weeks, it gives us, we're starting this process 2 weeks early. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it slips into April, it might slip into April by a little bit, but we try not to, because I said we haven't missed a deadline to date. And it'll be an absolute nightmare if we miss this deadline, which is our key deadline.
So the only thing that's conditional on the listing then now is the raising of that 1.25, which you hope to complete within 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, if we can do it sooner, fantastic. Look, the story is compelling. The asset is large. The share price is low. I've no doubts warrants will be attached to this to reward people as we see the share price go. And I think the most important thing, I hope the most important thing is, for the last 3 years we've been sitting on Aquis. There's been very little trading activity, usually sales. We've had only, in the entirety of 2021, maybe 3 or 4 buys in the entire year. I've been working in the city advising companies for the last 25 years, and I've never seen even quite poor companies have so few buy trades. So whilst all we can do is think it has to be Aquis, it might not be. Yeah. So what we have to do is demonstrate, once we're on LSE, which is obviously a market which is known for its higher levels of liquidity, and it's open to 100% of brokers and stockbrokers, funds, etc. We have to hope that people start listening to the news, hearing what we say, and put 2 and 2 together, that we have an asset that's worth tens of millions of pounds, owned by a company that's worth 2 or 3 million pounds.
Yeah.
But what the market's like, it has to make up its own choice.
Indeed. Well, I would encourage people to look back at some of the previous interviews we've done, particularly with your geologist Cedric there, just to get an idea if they want a refresh on where the projects are. I'm sure that as we go down the path, hopefully in the not too distant future here, we can actually catch up when you do get on that listing as to how the activities are progressing there at Monte Mwembe. Just a final thought, Christian, if people want to take part, presumably they can contact the broker, Optiva. Are they able to see the prospectus, or what's the best way for people to get more of an idea of the proposition here?
Yeah, well, the prospectus won't be finalized and printed and published until the placing is completed.
Okay.
If they want to take part in the placing, either contact Optiva, or at the bottom of every RNS, there's my phone number, email address. You can do that. There are certain shareholders who have invested with us repeatedly since we started raising money in 2020, like friends and family, whatever, and they'll be dealing directly with us. And also, I think it's worth saying that the directors are putting into this placing, I think, about £115,000.
Okay.
There's 4 of us putting in about 115 in total.
Okay.
Love it.
You love it, yeah. Well, do you want to take a minute to sort of give an elevator pitch here at the end here? I know we don't want to go into too much detail.
No. It's a great story. Mark, thanks for putting me on the spot. It's really kind. Go to our website, altonare.com. All the information is there. We're mining rare earths, which are critically in-demand metals, which is only going to, the supply of which is only going to increase. They're used in electric vehicles and various other communications, defense, and electronics devices, clean energy devices. And our share price is horribly undervalued for sitting on Aquis for 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate you asking that. I'll get you back for that at one point. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, my apologies. Christian Taylor Wilkinson, the Executive Director of Altona Rare Earths. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Cheers.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programmes at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.